Hello, good evening. Hi, Natalie. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How's it going?
It's good. It's good. So today is July 8th, Wednesday, July 8th. And here where I am at in Germany, it is almost 8 in the evening. And with us, we have Natalie Hall, production coordinator in film and video production in London. And yeah, hello, Natalie.
Hello, it's a lovely rainy evening here in London. It's 10 to 7.
So 1 hour difference, but we have the same sky right now. Also here it's
Yeah.
gray and rainy and cold.
Oh, good old summer, hey.
The German and British summer together.
Yeah.
It's the same. So Natalie, you are our 14th story in this series. And it's actually our second interview today because we've already had our first interview. We've already spoken. And our first interview was exactly 14 days ago on the 24th of June. And I think it'd be good before we start talking now and seeing what has changed and what the situation is right now in London and the UK, that we watch bits and pieces of what we discussed 14 days ago. And so we get to know you a little bit better also. Keep in
Cool.
mind, as obviously you know also that things have changed, and so the numbers have also increased in the UK. You've had in general 3-digit numbers for deaths. A couple of days you had 2 digits, but in general you've had around 100 deaths a day, give or take. And also your cases. Since we last spoke, you've had a couple of days where you've had a few cases, around 400, 500 new cases a day. But in general, your average was around 800 and 1,000 new cases. Last time I did say how many cases you had, but now I was looking and there's been a change in the UK. A few days after we spoke, around 30,000 cases from the total amount were taking off because they were duplicates, so a new way of counting.
Yes.
And so I'm not going to say the numbers to avoid any confusion, but we know that you have had new cases. You still have new cases, you still have new deaths, just like
Yes.
most of the countries in the world, right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's how it is. Let's see. I'm going to ask you to go on mute now because I'm going to play your video. Let me know that everything's okay because I've had issues before. And you should be seeing something right now. So, Dak, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, thank you for having me. So I'm Natalie. I am 20 years old and I've been living in London for almost 2 years now. I moved to the city after college to work at a film production company, and before all of this happened, I loved to go to gigs. I really love to travel, and I would film all of my travels on my YouTube channel. And I just love to make the most of the city. Um, that's me. Yeah, I grew up in Somerset, which is a rural part of southwest England, so moving to London was great for all the culture that is here.
And just before we continue with our interview, just out of curiosity, where did you spend lockdown? Was it in London, or where did you go back home? Or
So my lockdown was split into two parts. So on the weekend just before lockdown was announced, I had a trip booked back home to see my parents anyway. So on the coach, expecting that I wouldn't come back for a while, and that was the case because lockdown was enforced. And I spent about 8 or 9 weeks at home with my parents, which was really lovely. But then I moved back to London on the 8th of May because we had some new people moving in and I wanted to be here. And yeah, that's where I've been ever since.
okay, so a little bit split. Tell me what is going on right now. So what is it that you're seeing in the news? What's the topic that people are talking about? What is the concern that people are thinking about or having?
Sure. So the big thing that's in the news right now is the fact that yesterday our Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced that from the 4th of July, places like pubs, restaurants, cinemas, and hairdressers and museums, a couple of cultural things, are allowed to reopen. So a lot of what's in the news right now has been focusing on the businesses that are trying to rebuild their cash flow again, how safety measures will be put in place. They also announced that the 2 meter social distancing rule has been minimised to 1 meter. And I think a lot of what's in the news is related to the economy and how the businesses reopening is going to affect that. That's the big thing right now.
The big thing. And did they say anything of why the change from 2 meters to 1?
Apparently it was because scientists had established that the risk from 1 meter is no different to the risk from 2 meters. So they were talking about how places like pubs couldn't possibly survive if everyone had to stay 2 meters. So I think it's partially for the economy that they've actually reinforced that now, or they've instated that it's 1 meter, so more people can go to the places that are opening on the 4th of July. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a very difficult situation to be in, obviously, as an owner of a business, but also, I guess, as the government that needs to think about the economy of the country, right? That's the main thing that's happening everywhere in the world, really.
Yeah.
One of the things I saw a few days ago was that, you know, how Spain was opening their borders, and the UK, a lot of UK people obviously do go to Spain for holidays. It's summer, it's hot, and they were not gonna impose a quarantine. Have you heard about anything about that? Like, what are people back home saying or wanting to do? Or because from an outsider's perspective, so I'm in Germany right now, so just looking at the situation in Spain and the UK, both countries were and are in a pretty bad shape, right? So one country that didn't do so well opening its door to a country that's not doing so well.
Yeah, it's really difficult because I think some people are really delighted. They've already booked trips. Some of my friends actually have already booked a trip to Madrid like weeks and weeks ago for August, and they invited me, and I was like, I probably won't come. I just don't feel quite safe yet. Because you're right, both the UK and Spain had, they had to enforce a really strict lockdown because our, what do you call it? The curve was going higher and higher and higher. Obviously, we're now way past the peak, but movement between two countries maybe isn't the greatest idea to me. So for me, a lot of the things I've been seeing on social media, half the people are really excited about it, and half the people are saying, I'm just going to take it easy, I'm going to just be cautious for now. I guess because, like, for me, I don't want to be caught up in a rush of people going as well. So it's very, very split.
It is difficult. I mean, I was looking at the numbers earlier before our call just to make sure that I knew them well. And from what I see, the UK, as it stands today, has over 306,000 cases, and it has 43,000, a little bit over 43,000 deaths. And then we have Spain, that is also almost 300,000 cases, you know, and it's very difficult.
When you look at it, it's pretty much it's 300,000 cases. It's the same as us. We're both,
basically, and it's very difficult everywhere. For instance, here in Germany, we have done relatively well compared to other countries from the very beginning. So we have felt safer, and our lockdown was not as strict as the one in Spain or even the UK. But at the same time, recently, we've had a couple of big outbreaks that have made the government and a little bit nervous, let's say. And there's an area where I live in one of the regions of Germany that is actually going on lockdown because they need to figure out how far the virus has spread, right? And that makes you think how everything and anything can change in the blink of an eye, right?
Exactly. I watched the Prime Minister's announcement today because I knew it would be a significant one, and he did emphasise that all of these new measures are reversible. So if people are going to be irresponsible, there were a lot of lots of massive raves, massive parties, maybe 600 people going to parties in the UK in the past few weeks, which, that's people at once, that would probably be classed as something quite irresponsible. So he has said that if things like that continue and people aren't being as safe as they can, then they might take away the privileges. And it kind of sounds like a teacher at school. If you don't stop being naughty, I will take away the playtime or something. Like, it feels like that.
But yeah, it's but unfortunately it has to be like that up to a certain extent, right?
Yeah, definitely. Because if more outbreaks happen because of the eased measures, then we need to take back.
Yeah, it's too contagious of a virus, and the problem is, even though we're 6 months in, almost 7, there's still so many things that we don't know. There's too many variables that we are unfamiliar with, or they need more studying, and too much. And before we continue to our next question, tell me a little bit about the social distancing and the mask face cloth wearing. How is it in London? How is it back home where your parents are at? Just give us a little bit of an idea of the face mask situation.
Sure. So with the face masks, it's been made compulsory on public transport. However, right now, all of these things, like you should wear a mask when you go to enclosed spaces like shops, are only guidelines. They are not enforced by law. So it's completely your choice whether you want to wear a mask or not. I've seen lots of things that have said that the risk of passing on or catching COVID if you're wearing a face mask is significantly reduced. But back home, my mum works in a supermarket, and here, when I go to the supermarket, I see that most people aren't wearing masks. I'd say maybe 30% are not wearing masks, and my mum has said the same back at home. Even though it's an enclosed space, I think because it's not been enforced, there's been no messaging apart from on public transport from the government that says wear a mask, you should wear a mask. It's just not in general circulation from the government, so people haven't been taking to it. I'd say 30% are wearing masks and maybe 70% aren't, unless it's public transport.
Okay, yeah. The mask conversation has been a very difficult one in this whole pandemic. There's been too much, yes, with reason, but a little bit too much of change of opinions, and then that adding to the confusion, and then problems with the communication in a lot of countries, not only in Europe. But like you said, there have been more and more studies that show that wearing a mask, of course, it's not the solution. We already know that. It is just a piece of the puzzle, let's say. It does help. But if you wear a mask and you don't do social distancing, you're not going to be completely safe. But if you do both, the risk of getting infected, it is lower. And especially wearing a mask is not for you, right? It's the most unselfish act that you can do in the end, right? Because it's for the other person.
Exactly.
So tell us a little bit, what are your hopes? What are your concerns? So what is it that you think is going to happen in the next few days, in the next few weeks? What is it that you don't want it to happen? And what is it that you think will happen?
Sure. So my estimate for the next 2 weeks, or like sort of, yeah, 10 days to 2 weeks, because that's when we'll hit July the 4th and we'll see how the world looks when things are open again. My hope is that we don't reach another peak, and that cases continue to fall and deaths continue to fall. I've noticed that despite all the protests, which I think have been great, actually we haven't seen an increase in cases really. Like the trend hasn't gone up, I don't think. So I'm hoping that means that transmission between, like when pubs open, that transmission will be less likely. I hope that that's what will happen. I hope that people will be respectful of each other. You know, mates asking their mates, do you want to come out today? Do you want to go to the pub? I hope that no one will be put under pressure to participate in social activities just because we're allowed to. Doesn't mean that you have to if you feel uncomfortable. So I hope people will continue to be kind to each other. It's hard to predict what will happen because this whole thing has been so unpredictable already. It's really hard. I can't predict if cases will go up again or they'll keep declining, because like I said, the protest, people were concerned that might transmit the virus a little bit further, but it doesn't seem to have done. So I'm hopeful that, you know, with social distance restaurants, that won't do it either.
Yeah. I mean, with the protest, yes, a lot of people, I was very concerned. I understood the reasons of the protests, and of course they are good reasons, but in a pandemic, I was a bit scared. And of course you have the difference, right? One thing is if you are outside, most people wearing masks, and you keep on moving, right? And you're outdoors. But another thing is if you're cramped in a place indoors with barely anyone wearing masks, right? And no
Yeah,
social distancing.
true.
So that does have an effect, right? But I like your hope, so let's just stick to your hope, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to be optimistic.
Let's be a little bit optimistic, realistic, always realistic. So like you said, be kind to each other, don't feel forced, don't force, and just be careful, and let's really have a little bit of hope, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I like that message. And last message to finish our interview. If you could give a message to yourself, so if you could give a message to the Natalie that is going to be with us in 14 days, what would you tell her?
So, Natalie, in 14 days, first of all, hello. My message to you is keep working hard, and don't forget to give yourself breaks. I know you're really ambitious right now. You're applying to university, you're trying to read 3 million books, you're trying to do your 9 to 5, you're trying to keep active and do your exercise. But just remember that you can only do so many things in one day without exhausting yourself. So keep productive, but make sure you rest, because it's a very strange time and everything is like 5 times more exhausting than usual. So yeah. Goodbye, future Natalie.
It's a very straightforward message. Take care of yourself. You want to do it all, and you should want to do it all, but just take care of yourself, because there's stressful times, and there's only one Natalie, and we want her to be okay in 14 days, right?
Yes, we really do.
We really do. Natalie, it has been a true pleasure having you on this Wednesday, very hot evening. I know it's hot over there. It's like I'm boiling right now also.
So hot.
Yeah. And it really has been a pleasure talking to you. And I will see you in 14 days.
See you in 14 days. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.
So future Natalie that is now in the present.
Yes.
How was it seeing your past Natalie giving this Natalie of today the message? Because you haven't seen the video. I haven't
No,
shared
I
anything
haven't.
with you. So thoughts,
Um,
feelings.
yeah, I mean it's strange. Like I still obviously it's me. I still feel the same, but it's funny to now have the power of hindsight, if that makes sense. Everything I said then, it really has changed in 2 weeks. Like it all has changed, yeah, in 2 weeks. So it's quite strange. I guess like because I mentioned it in that video, but I make YouTube videos and they're usually just vlogs of what I get up to, travels, and obviously I'm documenting my thoughts and feelings at the time, and I love to rewatch them because I'm reminded of what I thought and felt at the time, but I now know how things have changed since then, so it was kind of like that, so really interesting.
And were you able to take things slow? Did you listen to your past self, or have you been doing too much?
If anything, I've gone the other way. I haven't left the house that much in the past 2 weeks, like not consistently. Um, I kind of just I actually did rest quite a bit,
Mhm.
but then I wasn't being productive. So I need to find that balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking about balance, there has been. I mean, you already spoke about it last time. How on the 4th of July things were going to open because there needed to be a balance, right, between the what was good for the economy and what was good for the health of the population. And 4th of July was last weekend. Tell me
Yeah. So
about it.
yeah. Sorry.
Tell me about it. Yeah.
So I did not go out on the 4th of July to any pubs or anything, but I did go for a walk with a mask on around my neighbourhood, and it was very strange to see people sat inside a cafe or restaurant. Like there's one street that's really near me that was very busy with people eating and stuff outside. And I saw lots of photos on Sunday, the 5th of July in the morning of crowds of people in Soho in London. So that's kind of like Oxford Circus, very popular area for locals and tourists to go for like restaurants, theatres, bars, pubs, everything. And it was extremely busy. No social distancing, no people wearing masks because they were drinking. And actually, that's just in London, but across the UK, I think now 3 pubs have already closed because some of their visitors or staff tested positive for coronavirus after visiting the pub. So they're now having to contact all the people that were there. And yeah, so I mean, that's only 3, but who knows how many more it could be. Um, you know, we'll see how the numbers look in a couple of weeks' time, but they have been strangely the same. Like you mentioned that we've had a couple of 2-digit deaths, but it's been mainly 3-digit deaths. And whenever we have a day with lower deaths and lower cases, it feels really hopeful, but the next day it will shoot back up to twice the amount. Um, so that's been quite disheartening when you compare to other European countries where they have had an actual decline even into single figure deaths and less cases. So that's not good. That really frustrates me. Yeah, it's been a strange couple of days seeing things reopen.
It's not only in the UK. Oh, I just recently interviewed someone. It was the first interview, so we will see how things will change for this person in 2 weeks. But she is a journalist from Moscow, And she was telling me that it was very strange, just bits and pieces how you said it. It was a beautiful day when we spoke. Beautiful, beautiful days. The sky blue, the sun shining, summer, and the streets and the bars and the restaurants were full. And everybody was drinking and eating and talking. No masks, no social distancing, nothing. She said it was so weird because it was as if nothing ever happened. All these months never happened, the virus never
Right.
happened, the pandemic never happened, and it's not happening, right? And it's this feeling of I don't know. It's really really weird, especially because you can see, for instance, on the other side of the world, we look at the United States, right? And you have days where they have 55, 60,000, 40,000 new cases a day. And I mean, deaths, let's not even talk about deaths. In 2 weeks, they've had around 10,000 new deaths. And yes, it is a bigger country. I know that. We all know that. But it's still just accelerating. In general, the pandemic is accelerating from a global perspective. Some countries have done better than others, etc. But it's you look at, for instance, Australia, right? That they were doing really well, and now they're closing a whole region, right? Victoria, where Melbourne is, because spike here, outbreak here, but then really big one. You look at Spain. You mentioned Spain in our first interview. And also Spain, there's a region that is going on lockdown. And all this because you can't, just the virus gets out of hand, right? And you mentioned,
Yes.
okay, these 3 bars that they were closed and you need to contact the people and you have to contact the people that the people got in contact with, right? It's a chain. And no matter how good the system is in a country, can it be that good that you just keep on getting like thousands of new cases every day? And can you keep up with it?
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned the regions. I completely forgot to say, but a region in the north of the UK, Leicester, they are the first place in the UK to have had local lockdown enforced, I think last week. So they've gone back to like non-essential shops closing. You should only leave for like exercise and groceries and stuff. And they completely missed out on the 4th of July stuff because they closed way before that. So yeah, it's exactly the same here as well. It was seemed to be getting better, but local outbreaks are now the issue.
And especially now with traveling, right? You mentioned your friends that are going in August to Spain.
Yeah,
Are you still not going?
still not going. I really just written off all travel for this year, to be honest, still. Just because, as we've seen, it's gone up and down, up and down. And when we think it's going to continue going down, it sort of creeps up again and things happen.
And you have
Too
some
unpredictable.
countries that are better and worse. Sorry,
Yeah.
you were saying to what?
So, it's just unpredictable, too unpredictable. Yeah.
And like you said, it's unpredictable. So how can you go to a country or come back from a country where things can be worse or better, right? And you're carrying or bringing, carrying back or bringing the virus. Greece, for instance, had said no to the UK, that the UK could not enter Greece until the 15th of July. Yesterday, they confirmed, yes, from the 15th onwards, you can go. But Greece has also seen spikes, an increase in numbers since they've opened up, right? And since travelers have come. It's
Yeah.
difficult.
Really difficult.
Difficult because you do it for the economy, but if you're playing this like pull and push game of locking and opening and not easing and not properly doing contact tracing or doing enough testing or isolating, right? I'm not familiar. I don't know. I don't know the situation right now. If you do, please let us know. But for instance, I take again the example of the United States. Right now, they're having issues that their test, the results, when you take the test and the results take too long, a day, 2 days, 3 days. And in the meantime, people are just, going around. So then they test positive. But what about these days in between?
Exactly.
And are people, how is it right now? I know a few weeks ago and a few months ago, but I assume things have changed. Have things improved in the UK? You test and then you have to self-isolate until you get the results, or
I personally have not seen that. It would make absolute sense if you get tested that you should isolate. My mum had a test because she works in a supermarket, but she was already isolating at home because she had to have a small procedure at the hospital, so she needed to isolate anyway. But she had her test during that time. But no, I haven't heard of any sort of like compulsory isolation uh, after a test. No. And also our contact tracing, they've just scrapped the app that they were going to use. We were taking a long time to develop a test like track and trace app. And then suddenly it just dropped off the face of the earth. No one's been told to use one. I think the only thing that I've heard about contact tracing is within those public spaces. So obviously they take the names, contact details of anyone who goes to a cafe, pub, restaurant, hairdresser. And if you are showing symptoms or you test positive, you're supposed to call the place you went, and then they contact people that have also been there.
so you're
Um,
supposed to do the first move.
yeah, pretty much. So there's no app to tell you really. Or I mean, there is. My flatmate, he's moved out about a week ago, but he was working for the track and trace, but it's very minimal. There's been no encouragement from the government to use it or any enforcement. So yeah, it's not being used really as a widespread tool for contact tracing.
Contact tracing, and it just makes everything more difficult, especially because with the traveling, right, back and forth, there's barely any quarantine requested from the countries you're traveling to, or the countries that are coming to you. And so how does that work? There's no quarantine, there's no testing, there's no contact tracing, or there is but not enough.
Yeah, it just seems to be the government are sort of saying, oh, we trust the British public to be sensible and take matters into their own hands. But evidently, from the photos that I saw in Soho, the British public are not being sensible. So it makes me distrust the general, if you know what I mean. Without government guidance, which there hasn't really been that much, it does get out of hand. And you're right, how do we control it if we're traveling between countries? I guess it's not being controlled. Even masks aren't compulsory unless it's on public transport. So it's really up to the individual, I think, at this stage.
But like you said, if the individual is not being guided or informed, or there's no trust or no communication, then you're a bit like lost, right?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, and this is understandable, that because the government or the general messaging for the public it doesn't seem very urgent. It doesn't feel urgent to the individual. So then, people are meeting up with friends, no social distancing, or meeting up with lots of people at once. And I suppose it is partially due to the fact that the messaging isn't exactly telling you not to do that, really. It's very vague, it's very, it doesn't seem very urgent. So unless, I don't know, unless you follow certain people on social media who are saying, oh, wear masks, stay social distance, you're not going to do that because you're not being told to. So you think it's okay. It's weird. It's a lot of divided opinions and actions at the moment.
And it's really unfortunate that that's still the case. That for some reason, I don't know, maybe I'm misreading the situation, but I see it getting worse,
I
not
do
better,
too.
right?
Yeah, and
It's
it's
the
really,
divide.
yeah, it's really scary because, you know, the evidence shows if you don't wear them, like I think I said this last time, but the evidence shows that if you're wearing a mask, you really, really significantly reduce the likelihood of passing or contracting coronavirus. Um, but people aren't doing it, or, you know, with social distancing, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's also been evident with the trend in our numbers going down just because it was a good day, and then they go back up, they double again. um so it's really staying stagnant, like, yeah.
And also, you say it was a good day, it was a bad day. Let's not forget that what we see is not what happened that day, right? It's a consequence of our
Exactly.
actions 2 weeks ago. So if
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
this thing that one day you're good, one day you're bad, you might not see the difference that day, but you will see it in 2 weeks. Like you said, one day will be good, one day will be bad, but overall it's bad because it's just either stable, but stable in a high place, or just, going up and down. And
Exactly.
it's it's really difficult. And the masks, for instance, if I wear a mask, we spoke about this, but I think it's worth just repeating it, because there's still so many people that say, but how can a mask or a cloth mask stop the transmission of virus, right? And right now, one way that we know for sure that you get infected is via droplets. And what are the droplets? They're the particles, the saliva, the wet stuff that comes out of your mouth, whether you see it or not. So visible, invisible. So if we
Yeah.
are talking and there's no barrier between you and I, in a sentence, in 2 hours, I might spit by mistake. So that will get to you. But
Yeah.
you feel it. But in the other moments, there is something of me that's getting to you that you don't know, you don't even feel, right? Because
Yeah, exactly.
otherwise it'd be disgusting. But
Yeah, of course.
but having this barrier, having this face mask, it stops, maybe not completely, but a good percentage. And if you wear it
Exactly.
also, then it's a double barrier.
Exactly. I saw a really good like animation, and it compared you know, us breathing to, you know, in the winter where you can see your breath in front of you. That still happens even if you can't see it. So your breath still comes all out here when you breathe, but with a mask it just comes a little bit out and then up through the top. um and that's so significantly less than a big puff of air. um yeah.
Exactly. It's yeah, perfect. I'm gonna look for that video because it's a perfect image. It's exactly how it is. There's something, a barrier that stops it. And if I wear it, I will be protecting you, right? I won't be protecting
Exactly.
really me, because if you have it and you're not wearing, etc. So if we all wear it, it's better. But we need to do social distancing. It doesn't mean that if we are both wearing a mask, we can be hugging and like whispering to each other. We still need the space. We still need to, wash our hands. We still need to not touch our face and then touch surfaces, and the masks, we need to wear them properly, because yes, you do see sometimes people wearing masks, but they're wearing them as a necklace, right here.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it was, I saw, so I can't remember where I saw it, but someone was saying, you know, we're not asking you to wear a chin
guard.
accessory, we're asking you to wear a mask.
Yeah, and you, and also something, I don't know if you've noticed, but I've noticed here in Germany, and sometimes I think, what's the point? I mean, you see, some women are better than others. I know that. I have my moments. So sometimes my purse is quite nice and clean and everything is in its place. But sometimes I just like throw everything in there, and you have coins and you have receipts and you have like anything and everything in there. And now I see sometimes people just getting their mask out of their purse without, and it's, their mask is not in a bag or anything, and they put it dirty without cleaning their hands, put it back, put it, throw it. That's not hygienic. You have to be also hygienic about it, right?
Yes.
We still need to learn these things. We still need to improve, because like you said, it does help.
Definitely.
Social distancing, is it still a thing or not really? I mean, except this weekend that you were telling us about.
So it's been brought down to 1 meter plus, and again, I really think it's down now to individual choice. Like the people I live with have been having people over, not really distanced, or like going to friends' houses. I actually went on like a date on Sunday, and I made sure to say we're going to stay socially distanced. I was waiting for him at the train station, and I saw so many people come out of the train station and hug each other, not wearing masks and stuff, and I was like, I don't feel comfortable doing that, so I'm going to make sure that we stay as apart as possible. So yeah, it's again seems to be down to people's choices now. Yeah.
And how was the date?
It was lovely. Yeah. We did quite a few Zooms during lockdown. So it wasn't like awkward. Not too awkward. Yeah. It was nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing, right? There's been love in the air, love in the Zoom, in this quarantines and lockdowns, and just in the pandemic in general, right?
Yeah.
Way of dating, right? First, like before you would do, I don't know, the different apps by choice, and now it's like, no, face to face through Zoom by force in a way. And then
Yeah,
social
for sure.
distancing, how was that, the social distancing on your date, when you told him and when you went around?
It was fine actually. I was thinking, oh, like I don't know if I should say we're gonna do this, but I was like, if I don't, then I'll be nervous the whole time because we won't know what the boundary is. So I just thought I would set the boundary and just be assertive because I don't feel comfortable not social distancing. So I'm gonna make sure we do it. But it was fine. We sat in a park and walked down like a canal in London. So it was nice outdoorsy stuff, which I guess you wouldn't normally do on a date. You would go maybe out for a drink or to dinner, or even though we were technically allowed to do that, it was nice to experience the outdoors of London because it's really pretty.
Yes, it is. And it's really nice, and that you understand what you feel comfortable with, and you don't feel comfortable. That's the thing. Even if right now in your country, in your city, in your government says, just go ahead and forget about everything, you as an individual, you think, I don't feel comfortable, so I want to do
Yeah,
something distancing.
because the evidence is there to say that, well, the cases haven't died out yet, so clearly we're not doing it right. Um, yeah, so yeah, I'm gonna stick with that
Yeah.
for a while.
And it makes sense, because you have countries that have done and are doing, I mean, I don't know if it's right to say it this way, but that have done a better job than the UK, and they're having problems. So
Yeah,
to put it very bluntly, what makes you, the UK, think that it will not happen to you?
exactly. Oh, I could go on a big rant about our government, but I'll save that. Dear. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
stay composed.
composed, calm. But yeah, governments, but you can change, right? That's the thing. Doesn't matter if you were a good government or a bad government before or even last week, or you as an individual. If yesterday you were just, not social distancing, not wearing masks, not caring, just not thinking about anybody else, today onwards you can be different, you can completely
Exactly.
change, and you will see a difference, and you will help your community, your city, and everybody else, because it's that narrative from the beginning that it just affects old people or it just affects the sick. First of all, it's heartless to think that way. It was heartless then, it's heartless now, and a little bit stupid, if I can say so.
Yeah,
Right, and then we know it's not true. There are more and more studies that show even the mild cases, it affects the brain. There's some, like, it's not just, the lungs, which, I mean, just that's a pretty big thing, right?
yeah,
You have people that lose their sense of smell, of taste, and to lose that, that's neurological, that's the brain. And then for a while, after they recuperate, they still can't smell or taste. So there's so many things that we don't know, and we should just be careful. And you're young, you specifically, Natalie. um, how do you know if you have a comorbidity? Like, how do you know? Maybe unless you've been doing 1,000 checkups, and unless you feel particularly bad one day and say, no, I'm sure I have something, let's check it out. There is a moment in your life that you don't know, and then you know.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, no one can know.
It's so, but I think we can definitely see that things have changed in the last 2 weeks for you. And well, for you, you still like your mindset is still the same, because you see what's happening and so on. But things have changed in the UK. Things are changing worldwide. We hit 12 million cases worldwide. Um,
Wow.
yeah, and the difference from 1 million to the next was in less than a week.
God.
So, yeah, and the World Health Organization said that, like I said earlier, the pandemic is accelerating, and we got to be careful.
Yeah.
So, talking about being careful and just, giving a message. Last time we spoke, I asked you to give yourself a message, your future self. What would you tell her? And you did. And now what I ask you is, based on this experience that you've had with 14 Days to Change, we've discussed so many things in the last interview, and even now we've seen the changes. We've seen what was happening then, what's happening now in the UK, and we've heard your hopes and your concerns and just a bunch of other stuff, your date, how your social distancing date went. And now, based on all this, I'd like to ask you if you could speak to whoever is going to watch this video, whether they come from a country that is better off or worse off than the UK. And if you could tell them something, what would it be?
Oh, okay. So if I could tell you, watching this something, I'm gonna be not lazy, but I'm gonna take something from what I told myself last time, but it's just continue to be kind and considerate to yourself and others. Don't pressure yourself or your friends to do things they're not comfortable with. Don't assume that everyone's feeling the same, because some people that I know still haven't left their house since March. Some people I know have been continuing the same as March. But one thing that we all can do and show to each other is kindness, and it sounds cheesy and vague, but please do be kind to everyone.
Yes, we need it.
Yes.
The right time to be kind and considerate and think of others and think of yourself, right? Natalie, it has been a pleasure. We, oh, wait, there's one thing I'd like to know that
Yes.
I said I was going to ask you and I forgot, but I can't finish this conversation without asking you, especially because you're the perfect person to ask. So I like to watch series a lot, and I don't like comedies, but I do watch like different types of movies and everything. And one thing that I've been thinking about since the beginning of the pandemic, which I know it's not very important, but you need some of this, was, oh my God, what is going to happen with my series or this movie that's going to come out and so on. And I just quickly, if you can tell us a little bit, what's the situation with, movie making, video production, and so on?
So I've seen quite a lot of productions continuing actually. I don't know the situation with, say, dramas where characters have got to, like, I don't know, fight or kiss, that kind of thing. But definitely in my field, which is more factual or documentary, one of my friends just today has started work on a month-long sports series, and the presenters, I suppose, will be socially distanced the whole time, and there may be less crew, or everyone will be wearing masks and everyone will be cleaning things more often. At my work, we are now continuing to film a little bit more. So again, we're aiming to have less people on site, and just being mindful of mask wearing. We've ordered lots of personal protective equipment for our crew, but we are continuing to film. We've got a fancy document that we can send to anyone, any clients, to say that these are the things we're going to do to be safe. Studios have reopened. So I would also like to know what dramas are going to do about characters having to do things like fighting or being close together. But now that the rule is 1 meter, lots of productions are going up ahead. I've seen lots of behind the scenes pictures from some productions, so slowly starting. But that's a good question. Drama especially, I'm
Yeah,
not sure how they'll do it.
yeah, with all the screaming, all the passion, all the drama
Yeah.
for the journey and kissing, and yeah, all those scenes. It's pandemic is changing everything.
Yes.
That's changed. Well, thank you very much for just telling us a little bit about this. I wanted to know about it. And
Sure.
that's it, Natalie. It has been a pleasure, and I thank you. 14 Days to Change with you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was really great to talk to you.
It was nice. So thank you very much, and have a good evening.
You too. Thank you. Bye.